President Trump's 30% tariff threat hit European capitals like a bolt of lightning. In the early hours, German finance officials scrambled to jot down emergency countermeasures, totaling 102.2 billion euros into their briefing books. The euro-dollar exchange rate wobbled as the first headlines came out, and murmurs of concern began spreading through the factories of Stuttgart. So, will the EU simply change its product labels? Or rethink its entire trade relationship with the United States? Let's dive into how this massive retaliation plan, shaped deep within the Berlin-Paris-Rome triangle, came together, who it targets, and who it protects. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell and like the video to stay in the loop with our content. In spring 2025, Donald Trump stood at a campaign podium and declared, "The free ride for foreign goods ends here." That single line sent a cold chill through the corridors of the European Commission in Brussels. EU officials remembered well the chaos sparked by years of back and forth over steel and aluminum tariffs. Within just 12 hours, the European Commission's Trade Directorate triggered a pre-approved emergency protocol. They updated their stepwise retaliation framework, a multi-layered document built for exactly this kind of crisis. Page 1 of the framework listed tariffs totaling $22.6 billion. A classified annex outlined a second-tier escalation worth up to $102.2 billion. To understand how these figures were chosen, we need to go back a bit. Since the pandemic, the EU has followed a the stick-before-striking approach to trade disputes. That means European trade analysts cross-reference export flows, regional voting patterns, and labor union sensitivities to identify product categories that can create maximum political pressure inside the United States. For example, one key target in the initial tariff package? Niche agricultural products like almonds, walnuts, and dates from California and Oregon. These account for about 40% of EU market share, forming a tight-knit West Coast economy, from farmers to shipping ports to packaging firms and even insurance brokers. Europe's hope that this entire chain of damage would trigger alarm bells in Washington's lobbying world. Meanwhile, Germany once again drew a firm red line around the automotive industry, just as it did in 2018. German car makers sell over 600,000 high-end vehicles to the United States every year. The profit margin from these sales is critical for funding investment at home, even in the smaller domestic market. Trump's past claim that European cars posed a national security threat had sent shockwaves across brands like BMW and Mercedes, including their Arkansas-based United States plants. Now the fear is different. If Trump follows through, German firms will likely ramp up production in Mexico. That could leave parts factories in North Rhine-Westphalia underused or idle. Germany argued that the auto sector should be front and center in any EU counterstrike, but France and Italy disagreed, pushing instead for a focus on agriculture and food exports. As a result, automotive measures were pushed into the second wave of retaliation. France's resistance is rooted in rural politics and cultural identity. For the Élysée Palace, preserving the image of France as a gourmet superpower is a national priority, even beyond just economic concerns. During Trump's first term, United States tariffs delivered a major blow to exports like wine, cheese, and brandy, cutting market share in the United States by 20% in just 1 or 2 seasons. Although recovery started after those tariffs were lifted, and with pandemic restrictions easing. The damage to distribution networks is still being repaired. Paris fears that another wave of United States protectionism could unravel 4 decades of transatlantic partnerships. So, France has proposed tariffs on American whiskey, alcoholic cocktail bases, and select luxury items. The tactic is clear. If Trump wants to promote Kentucky bourbon as an alternative to French wine, Europe will hit bourbon with tariffs too. Italy's concern is slightly different. Rome's soft spot is the luxury sector, particularly yachts and fashion brands. U.S. yacht buyers from Florida and Texas are a lifeline for shipyards in Tuscany and Liguria. These sectors were mostly spared during the 2018 to 2020 trade battles, since the Trump administration avoided hitting luxury goods. But this time, Italy doesn't want to take chances. So, Rome has proposed a 25% tariff on 40 to 60-foot sports boats in the EU's retaliation menu, meant to send a strong symbolic signal if new tariffs emerge. So, with retaliation tools sharpened, what's shifting in U.S. decision-making? Leaked memos from the U.S. Department of Commerce suggest that Europe's new retaliation list is more sophisticated than the one used in 2018. Instead of just focusing on big-ticket categories, it now targets niche industries with high political visibility. Heavy-duty trucks in Wisconsin, organic soybeans from Iowa, custom motorcycles in Pennsylvania, short-staple cotton farms in Georgia. This creates a complex pressure web in Congress. Republicans risk upsetting their rural base. Democrats oppose tariffs publicly but also need union support. One surprising item in the EU's $12.2 billion stimulus retaliation list? Cloud computing infrastructure? It might sound strange at first, but there's a simple reason. Most data center hardware in Europe is American-made and passes through customs as tangible goods. Under the proposed tariff, any tech with high U.S. content, chips, server racks, or cooling systems, would be taxed. This has Silicon Valley on edge. A slowdown in European data center investments could disrupt digital service delivery. Then there's the question of energy. The United States has become a major liquefied natural gas supplier to Europe, especially as the European Union moved away from Russian energy. At the moment, LNG logistics aren't on the European Union's tariff list. But, that could change. Brussels is really walking a fine line here, trying to avoid steps that might hurt its own energy independence, while at the same time reminding Washington that Europe holds some leverage too. Germany's opposition parties argue that using energy as a trade weapon would, in the end, just backfire on consumers. But in the end, Berlin's coalition partners agreed not to limit the Commission's options. One final puzzle: transatlantic defense cooperation. Under European Union law, weapons count as goods, but neither Brussels nor Washington wants trade disputes to hurt NATO operations. So items like Patriot PAC-3 MSE missiles, Abrams tank upgrades, and F-16 avionics are excluded from the retaliation lists. Still, if a full-blown tariff war breaks out, even these defense ties could face some indirect pressure, and that could, honestly, weaken NATO's internal stability. So, what would a trade war actually cost? According to quick response models from the European Central Bank, a minor tariff round could shave 0.2 percentage points off Eurozone growth and 0.25 points off US growth. A full-blown conflict could reduce growth on both sides by 0.4 to 0.6 points, while also driving up consumer prices. After dealing with inflation from energy and food crises in 2023 and 2024, policymakers are, pretty wary of another economic balancing act. That's why Europe's motto is, "We have the stick, but we'll put it away if we must." Two main signs will reveal where this is headed. First, the steel and aluminum quota deal. If the EU-US quota tariff agreement expires without renewal, tensions will likely erupt. Second, EU Council authorization. If the December summit grants the Commission full authority to launch broad retaliation, it signals that Europe is prepared for escalation. Here's how this might play out. First, status quo extended. The current deal gets renewed until 2028. Europe shelves its shortlist. The broad package stays sealed. Second, a mid-level clash. The EU launches its $22.6 billion response. WTO complaints fly. Markets swing wildly. But both sides stop short of collapse. Third, a full-scale trade war. Trump targets steel, autos, and agriculture. The EU hits back with the full $102.2 billion package by late 2026. Supply chains shift toward China, India, and Southeast Asia. Transatlantic trade drops below pre-2010 levels. Investment confidence weakens. Bottom line, the EU's dual-list strategy is no longer a threat, it's a calculated response plan. Berlin, Paris, Rome, and others have mapped out every path, first in economic models, then in diplomatic strategies, to avoid repeating the 2018 shock. Now, every new tariff from Washington automatically triggers a countermeasure in Brussels. And while both sides may want to avoid escalation, politics has a way of, ignoring common sense. Europe is leading with its short list, for now. But if rhetoric gets reckless, one morning the $102.2 billion retaliation package may hit the front page of the Brussels official journal, and the transatlantic economy may once again face the chill of tariff-driven winds. What's your take on this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video.